Another draft physics video presentation. Probably just comments. Mostly AB science comments, though, to be honest. But just the conversation about, the frustration of having an argument with people who just evade the argument, evade the points made, just evade the issues. And just this whole idea of explaining things and how, wow, is there any real point? Because nobody seems to be able to understand anything. So anyway, we'll start with the Dino. You couldn't have done a better job of completely dodging the point of my question. Thanks. I don't think I dodged it. You think the big universe is running some sort of complex show. I would just argue that gravity as a mechanism is dirt simple. I mean, this sort of came up in the Franklin Who room, the whatever they call that thing, the John Chappelle, whatever, some religious kook, no doubt. Science chat, where Franklin didn't even watch the video. I gave him has a whole week to watch it. Didn't even watch one of the videos yet, let alone the two videos I made expressly for his edification. So that sort of just demonstrates how much of a waste of time attempting conversation is. Anyway, so this idea of gravity. Okay, gravity. We know that. Yeah, so maybe 10 billion years ago, gravity was different. It was a different number. Say it's 687 or something. That's the gravitational constant. There's a certain amount of gravity that you get per interaction with per electron, let's say, and you move it a certain amount based on a certain amount of force that hits it. And this is the constant that sort of says this is how much impact the force has on electrons, would be the standard. And, I would argue that that number does change because the numbers change, because matter gets more dense, and to get more dense, it collects more force, essentially. It uses up more force. And therefore, the universe on the outside, becomes more pressurized than the stuff on the inside, and vice versa, and it yin and yangs. The number goes from 687 to 0.54, and then it goes up to 0.9 or something. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Point is gravity from our time scale is all pretty constant. And then we think it changes, right? The amount of gravity something is in, and the amount it produces are two different things. So the amount of gravity you're in, that is, if there's a moon here and there's a Saturn's way over here and something else is way over there, and let's say, let's approximate for distances. This could be a billion light years away. It doesn't matter. It's a real mass. The gravity affecting you isn't consistent because it's changed by what's around you. While your gravity, the gravity you're making, that is the amount of energy you're consuming from the universe, is a constant. Okay, so that constant is always constant. What you have as gravity is constant. How much you're pulling on other stuff, so to speak, how much energy you take out of the space between you and the rest of the universe is a constant, but this isn't a constant. So obviously I could put two things on either side of something, and I could say this is affected by no gravity, it's not moving. Well, it's obviously affected by gravity. That is, there's low pressure here and there's low pressure here. And the point is, if they're even or equal, then this object will just stay where it is, like it's not being affected at all. Doesn't mean that the gravitational constant changed. Doesn't mean anything like that. It just means there's more things in the environment, and therefore the gravity gets more complicated. The orbit gets more complicated. And so that's all there is, though. There isn't anything else. So whatever the universe does that looks fancy is just a consequence of there being X, Y, and Z influences. It just has to do with the fact that there's more than one condition that you exist in, and you're going to be affected by those things, and those things are moving, and you're moving, and so at every second these things are in different positions, and they'll affect you in a different way, and and it takes time for the influence to get to you. It takes 1 billion years for a planet to, it blows up, and it takes 1 billion years for us to know about it. That kind of thing. Anyway, but I answered your question. You often get all riled up. I get irritated. I've made that clear. It's not a matter of riled up. It's a matter of irritation. And what do you do about an irritation? You got a bite, you scratch it. You get hit by mosquitoes, you slap them. I mean, it's just a reflex. You're irritating. So, I'm supposed to be dishonest and pretend I'm not irritated? Okay. From reading the first few words. No, I read the whole comment, and the end of the comment was this stupid argument that somehow I have to provide physics with some convoluted nonsense equation, okay, to describe or explain the precession of Mercury. That I have to do something as equally silly as Einstein, where he just contrived an equation. I just pointed out how I could equally contrive an equation. It might actually be the truth, but I'm just saying I could contrive it. I could just make it up a theory and force it to work because I can take advantage of a circumstance that exists. Okay, I mean, the sun is here, Mercury's here, the Earth is way out here. Okay, all the other planets are way over there. All right, so Mercury is in a unique condition. And so I can make, Einstein says, okay, because Mercury is closer to the sun, it's being time dilated more, and so its reference frame is changing, and therefore it doesn't get to this point. Okay, it only gets to this point in the same amount of time, and that's what's processing it, right? Now that's what they say. What the math is actually doing is another story. So the math is so complicated people can't even tell you what the real story is. And he calls this gamma, give it some stupid symbol and say there, gamma caused the precession of Mercury. Now the trick is that, well, yeah, that works for Mercury, and the fact is the Earth is so far away that the gamma influence is non-existent, so he doesn't have to worry about it. There's no way to test it, so to speak, because there's no other body relevantly affected by the time dilation, because nothing else is in as strong as gravity as Mercury is. So nothing else is going to be affected by it as much. It's not going to be time dilated in its orbit. It's not going to be screwed up. But as I pointed out, I could do a similar rig and just say, here's the sun, and we know the sun has a center of mass, and I could just simply argue we can't see the center of mass, and the sun is kind of liquid, and so the center of mass could be doing this, no problem. It could be precessing, okay, right in here. And that precesses Mercury, and then Mercury, by processes the sun a little bit more, and the two just precess each other into erratic orbits, and their own erraticacy is what's creating the problem. And if the truth is the precession is so small, whatever, 17 miles of precession, let's just say 17 miles of precession in a sun that's got 1 million miles of diameter. So, I mean, it's not a lot. It's only a little bit of precession, and that's all you need to move Mercury. But the Earth is so far away, and gravity declines by the inverse square law, 4 times as much, half the distance, that it doesn't affect the Earth or Venus. Or, of course, the further away planets, no hope of affecting them. So it only affects Mercury. So I can contrive a mathematical equation that just says the sun is precessing, and I can do exactly the same thing Einstein did. And there's no way to test it because there isn't anything else to test it against. But why would I want to do that? Why wouldn't I just want to rationally explain to you that bent space is a silly model? It's not a three-dimensional thing. It's nonsense. And that time is no way a dimension. There are 3 dimensions. They have rules, right angles, right angle, right angle. They're all right angles to each other. There's no place for no time dimension as a dimension. Okay, it's baby talk. It's mush. I'd rather you understand that argument. Okay, that the whole space-time crap is just that. It's crap. It doesn't work. It's basically describing a convergence. It's just basically saying the universe, for no good reason, is disappearing. So inside an electron, there's a special make the universe disappear well, and the universe leaks out and goes nowhere to some magical place, and there's just an endless supply of new bent space, okay, to fill the void. I mean, it's a silly theory on its face. Now, I'd rather you just understand it's silly. You don't, whatever. Don't understand that it's silly. Okay, fine. It's just, but whatever. Fuck it. You immediately start imagining all sorts of nefarious motives. No, it's just the point is that this is what it takes for you people to get anything. There's no point in me talking, realistically. I'm not in a clown contest. I don't want to do what they do. I don't want to argue the truth the way they do, okay? And say something like, we have math that proves it. we've measured the weight of a electron by 10 million decimal places. They don't explain to you how they actually do that measurement and how it's even possible. They put an electron on a scale somewhere, which is idiotic. It's a charged particle. You can never get an honest weight because there's always some charge in the atmosphere that's going to be affecting how much it moves and therefore how much it can push on a scale. It's a ludicrous notion on its face. Anyway. Nefarious motives and challenge before you even get to the end of the sentence. Well, like I said, I read the whole thing, and the part that triggered me, okay, was the last part, okay, where you're basically saying, yeah, I gotta fight their fight. No, I don't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. Their theory is on its face extraordinary, bizarre, wacky, silly, fabulistic all over the place, virtual photon, what's their new thing now? Quasi-particles? Quasi-particles? I don't want to compete with that kind of bullshit. Dark matter, you know, the invisible matter that doesn't do anything but the one thing we want it to do. No, I'm not competing with their physics. I'm showing their physics to be silly, and I'm showing you that the evidence doesn't really support it, and that their math is a big fable also. Okay, I understand the frustration of answering a question you've covered perhaps many times before, but projecting any sorts of ill will on my part is completely fucking delusional. It's not a matter of ill will. You're telling me I'm completely unconvinced. I can't figure it out. I don't know what the hell's going on. You're saying that kind of crap overtly, and I'm saying, oh, after I've made all of these videos and been so simple in explaining it, you know, just broke it down so simple. I mean, the magnet as a filter is such a simple analogy. How the fuck could you fuck it up? How could you say, oh yeah, that's not a really good explanation of how magnets work, when it's an excellent explanation, completely explains it, and it's so fucking simple? You don't think I should say, shit, this guy's hopeless. I can't, there's no evidence in the world. Like, I keep piling it up and he's going to keep ignoring it. I've shown you how the two-slit experiment, they can't describe it right to save their fucking lives. There's not a single fucking video on the YouTube that does it accurately. I've shown you that. And you're still sitting here telling me, oh no, their science still has credibility. I can still see what they're getting at. And I'm not supposed to say, oh no, fuck, you're just hopeless. Alright. Defending Einstein? What, huh? You're defending the process. Einstein's famous because of circumstance, and that's it, and coincidence. Okay, the fake Eddington experiment, so that was just dumb luck that he got somebody to fuck up the experiment so perfectly that he got the right answer for Einstein. And then the second one is I already explained the precession of Mercury, right? His math is so convoluted, nobody could ever test it to see if it's actually the truth. And then the third magic charm was bent space, and it just happens to be a truth that atomic clocks their decay is interrupted by giving them velocity. Now, if they used a different kind of clock, we haven't proven that yet, right? We haven't proven that regular clocks are slowed down, that a quartz crystal clock is slowed down. They haven't done that proof yet. Alright, what the fuck are you talking about, Gary? Well, anyway, my question has to do with faraway objects. And again, the faraway universe is working the same way as us and the moon, you know, the earth and the moon and the sun. There is nothing else out there, okay? There's nothing else in the universe but gravity and heat, and there's nothing else. There's just nothing else, okay? That are being bombarded from all sides with force bits, except for tiny shadow areas where the bits are being blocked by other far away objects. Well, the point of the block thing was what, as I tried to explain to you before, it's the fact that you're absorbing some of the energy of the force by occupying it, moving matter. And so it's not really blocked. It's just for a little period of time it loses a little bit of its momentum, and that means its total energy for its lifetime is a tiny bit lower because it had to spend a little bit of time pushing a big, fat, dumb piece of shit. Sort of how I feel. If I have to keep pushing all this dumb shit, all right, I'm never going to get anywhere. Okay, my force bit is being degraded every day when I have to go push another piece of dumb shit, push another piece of dumb shit, push another piece of dumb shit, just to get them to accept ABC. And the ABC here thing is that conventional physics, any analysis at all, you just scratch on their theories a little tiny bit and they all fall apart. All right, nobody's bothered to do any of the scratching except for me, and then you're giving me essentially a hard time. Oh, I don't get it. I'm not convinced. I'm blah blah blah. Okay, if you can't understand why that gets a little more difficult to simply imagine, I'm sorry, I don't get how the big universe is all hard to imagine. It's just big giant shit being moved around by mostly gravity and the only other thing that's out there, which is momentum, heat. All right, without any math at all, when the distances switch to light years, then sorry, all I can say is that it seems like you're being willfully obtuse. Oh, I think you're being willfully insane, frankly. What do you think's out there? You think there's a picture of toast with Mary on it? What do you think's in the big universe? What fancy fucking thing is it doing? The only thing it's doing is supernovaing. Okay, you have some galaxies that are creating some extra radiation in the other dimensions, which you explain is just the consequences of a little bit of magnetism that takes place here and there. But there's nothing all that fucking dramatic. So you keep telling me there's something happening in the big universe. No, it's just big giant stuff swirling and orbiting and doing it incredibly slowly. I don't know what the fuck you think is so dramatic. Okay, it's not intuitive or obvious at all, except apparently to you. Well, apparently that's the way it works. That's right. I can imagine the solar system taking billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of years to do almost practically nothing, to hardly change at all. Because this stuff just keeps doing, it's boring. I'm orbiting the sun, I'm orbiting the sun, I'm orbiting the sun. Yeah, not terribly interesting, fuckhead. At such large distances, it would seem that the effects from the faraway shadowing would be completely countered by the amount of local forces acting on an object. Well, of course, the local forces have a lot more influence. That's right. A single star in space barely bothers me. I don't even get a tiny itch. Okay, I mean, the only way I can see it is to put a big giant piece of lensing in front of me and collect more photons and all that kind of crap. But yeah, so it's a very little influence. So what? The fact that there's trillions of them is sort of significant. Trillions and trillions. So I'm simply asking how someone could mathematically quantify. You can't mathematically quantify it because there's too many things moving. But the elemental functions are so simple that how could it possibly matter? You're just saying there's 6 guys and they all have rocks and they're going to throw rocks at you. And for some dopey reason, you want to calculate what rock is going to hit you first. Who cares? You know you're going to get hit with some rocks. You want to quantify it? Why? It'll do you no good. All right, the effects and show that it does not. I'm not challenging your idea, Gary. Yes, you are. You're challenging it. You're saying it's not good enough. It's not even close enough. I haven't explained enough. I haven't in any way demonstrated their physics to be absolute shit. And all of it is absolute shit. I mean, just get real. They even destroyed momentum. The simplest fucking thing in the universe just about momentum. Something's moving. Right? And they fucked that up by saying now that's a frequency. You know, if you're moving, you have a frequency. Yeah, no you don't. On the contrary, I'm asking about how to defend it better if I discuss it with anyone else. Well, I'm just saying, what's to defend? They're the one that you should be asking, how can they possibly defend this woo? Oh, one of the physicists says there's many universes. The other physicist says God rolls dice with the universe. The other physicist says whatever the other woo is. There's a pilot wave that tells everything where to go. You know, the universe is full of stewardesses showing the electrons. Oh, this is your seat over here. I mean, it's all silly. Fuck, okay. And I'm not sure why you feel the need to act so wounded and indignant every time I try. I'm not acting wounded. I'm acting irritated. You can't figure out what irritation looks like? You're irritating the fuck out of me because it just sounds like more naysaying, nitpicking horse shit. All right? You're not in any way saying, oh yeah, Gary, you're making progress, because I'm really starting to doubt their credibility. I'm seeing that this whole thing might just be made out of complete shit. because every time you scratch at it, I can see right through it. It looks like it's all facade. Everything they keep claiming is the truth. Doesn't seem to be the truth at all. All right. Serious. Try some cannabis, dude. So if that's your attitude, wow, you're really a grown-up, aren't you? You can't think through your life without a little cannabis. You're just a silly little pothead. Is that it? The magical cannabis. It's a painkiller, shithead at best, okay? It's a crude entertainment for dumbasses. You could almost talk about it as if the way they talked about TV and how it's a vast wasteland and entertainment for retards. Okay? So, I mean, talking about doing cannabis in a conversation about trying to dissect the physical truth of reality does make you look like sort of a putz. All right, anyway. I promise it won't make you as stupid as me. Yeah, well, there you go. How do you know? And frankly, don't you think I know something about cannabis? I grew up in the fucking 70s. You know, the 60s and the 70s. We know what the fucking shit was, buddy. We invented it. Asshole. But it just might mellow you the fuck out a little. Yeah, you really think that's how the reality works, right? No, it just dumbs you the fuck up, okay? And that's fine. There's some times when I don't want to be any smarter than my penis. But there's other times when I need to be smarter than my penis. Dumbass. Fuck. Alright, so to AB Science. And then we'll get back to Dino again. Alright, you can keep banging on about this. Yeah, that's right. And you're just showing that you can't pay any attention, that you can't acknowledge anything. I mean, again, the acknowledgement that has to come from you is that, oh yeah, well, some of our evidence sucks. And some of our theories are pretty weakly evidenced. I have to admit, we don't have really good evidence. It's not like we compiled a really good pile of evidence. And we've exaggerated it preposterously. And, you know, you will concede nothing. And I've already exposed these as truths. All right, I mean, it's part of your scientific discipline is repeating experiments, and you haven't repeated the Eddington experiment with comparable technology, and it's just a fact. Fact. You didn't try it with better technology. You haven't even done it with comparable technology. Okay, but you have not understood the concepts of or the math. So you say so. You're not going to be able to demonstrate that or prove that. I've been over the math. I've shown the math on all the physics professors are using. All right, so you can keep claiming they're doing it right. I can keep proving they're doing it wrong. All right, and then I can prove that even when they do it right, then they don't draw it because they obviously can't draw it as a wave theory anymore. The math that works doesn't have any waves in it. Newsflash. There's no waves in it. Okay, this is abundantly clear when you claim that there is no accurate information available on the internet. I didn't say that, so you can't see. You have to cheat the argument, and every time you have to always cheat, right? That's all you people can do is cheat, 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 cheat. I mean, I clearly said there's not a single video by a single professor. I didn't say there isn't some obtuse paper somewhere. That's fine. I don't even mind a link to that. But the point is that there isn't any video of the thousands, hundreds of thousands one might venture on the subject of physics. There's not one video you can point to and say, gee, there's a really good diagram of two-slit mechanics. And that's what I've pointed out. I've pointed out that Baldy can't produce it, you can't produce it, nobody can produce it. Not a single video that you'll stand by and say, yes, that was done very well. Not a single one. All right. That describes the experiment when there is the Wikipedia page. So again, I've been there, done that. The Wikipedia page is a joke. And you're going to pick a different kind of Wikipedia page, and they're both jokes. But regardless, you completely evaded the point. The point is there's not a single video by a single doctorate of physics. All right, these are people with doctorates, okay? These are real professional physicists. They're teaching at the most prestigious schools. You have to pay 30 or 40 or 50 grand a year to get into these colleges. And they're teaching fluff and mush. And that's the fact. And you can't defend it as anything other than fluff and mush. Go ahead, play one of their videos and defend it as something other than fluff and mush. It has nothing to do with the real experiment and what really is happening. Nothing. Because the most important feature is missing. The two patterns. All right, anyway, Wikipedia page, which does it perfectly well. So that's what he's standing by, which is just a joke. Here is the equation that describes the diffraction pattern. So this was kind of funny because he actually posted a link to the wrong kind of diffraction. So we'll go to the page and just show wrong. Got it wrong. Didn't even read the first paragraph on the Wikipedia page, right? So he links me to the middle of the page and says in optics, Fresnel diffraction, Fresnel, that's close enough. Equation near field diffraction. So, okay, equation for near field diffraction. And near field means exactly what it says, the really close stuff. So, see, there's two kinds of diffraction. Let's say so see, this isn't even specific to slits, let's understand. So that's how disconnected this stuff really is. But the idea is I could take a circular disc or something, right? So just imagine there's a disc here. All right, and I'm blocking light with it. It's an opaque disc, like a quarter. Okay, so I put a quarter here, and there's a light source here. There's two kinds of effect that are going to happen on all of the surfaces around the corner, right? So all of the surfaces, not just the two here, but all of the surfaces, okay, are going to cause an effect. And one of the effects is it's going to bend light. So here, say if this is the edge of the quarter, right, and the light's coming in, the light's going to diffract this way, okay, out. That's far field, right? That's heading out to the far field. And then it's going to create diffraction this way. And that's called near field because that terminates at a focus. So this diffraction only exists inside the focus. Outside the focus, it's just, once it goes past the focus, then it's far field again. Okay, so it's only relevant to the near field, and that near field, depending on the object, is obviously very close. Okay, so the pattern will be in this range. Okay, and this is where stuff will be happening, and any one of these locations is where you'll have interesting ring patterns and whatnot happening. But once you go further out, it's gone. Okay, because there's just not enough energy, and it's too diluted, and it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore because it's a smaller piece of energy. Obviously, you can understand it's a small bit of diffraction that goes on the inside. But anyway, so this isn't even the right. This isn't two-slit diffraction. Two-slit is the Fresnel, not Fresnel, the Frappenheimer or whatever it is, Fruntenhoffner. Okay, that's the far field. See, the two-slit experiment's taken place by putting this a preposterously far distance based on the size of this. Near field means this size isn't much bigger than this distance. Okay, like this distance is smaller than this size. That's near field diffraction. So he didn't even link to the right page. I mean, it says it can be applied to the propagation of waves in the near field. It says it again. It is to calculate, I mean, it just keeps pointing out, viewed relatively close to the object. So it says here, when viewed from relatively close to the object. Clearly, the double slit is overtly viewed very far from the object. Okay, so that's this diffraction. So let's go to the right math page and make fun of it. Yeah, because it's full of shit too. And the funny part is it's just so overtly full of shit. All right, so the real funny part, and I do mean funny. Ooh, I didn't see that before. So they do have it. Wait, you can't even see the slits in that one. But anyway, they keep changing these pages. So this is always good because you can see this is a rectangular opening, and you can see the distance between the rectangle on this way is much smaller than it is this way. And the longer dimension is the one that has the more compressed little bars. So that image is sort of deceptive because the rectangle was actually in this direction, okay, when they took that image. It wasn't in the standard rectile, rectile position. It is funny. There, you can't get better than this, right? Diffraction by a double slit, and look at the pattern they show. Oh, that's right. We're not going to account for the real pattern at all. So quite hilarious, right? I mean, just look at that. Just see it for what it is. It isn't the true double slit pattern. We're back to the Young argument. They even say the word Young in here, which is just such a waste of everybody's time, because we know it has nothing to do with that. And then they show an image here, which they've changed, because I think the old version of the Wikipedia page showed the 4 waves, but this one isn't even showing the 4 waves, the 4 point sources. And it has the point sources where? In the middle of the slits. I have never seen anyone do the mathematics that way, ever. Ever, ever. I mean, if I could blow this up. Look, 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 look. D. They have the distance as the middle of the slits. No one ever has done it that way. And of course, you will not get the right answer for the double slit experiment, because it's critical that this inner distance is the one creating the big envelope pattern, and the furthest distance is the one creating the little bars. So obviously a compromise between the two will not get you the right answer. So just horse crap. So first he gives the wrong page, and it has the wrong with the wrong math, and then the page that has the right math clearly isn't dealing with the double slit pattern at all. And then this math, the everything, okay, the everything math, they don't even do it. So they don't even have a good, the grading math is the real math, right? That's the math that's supposed to work in every circumstance. And that's the one where you account for every surface. Every surface becomes a point source. And exactly as I've drawn it, exactly as I've shown it. And so you can understand that if the surface is the point sources, that waves really are out of business. Look, it happens in the single slit. What does the single slit math do? The single slit math does this. This is the distance. That's the variable here and here. These are the point sources. This is where the radiation comes off. These are the 2 vectors you compare. You compare vectors from here, and then you compare a vector from here. You see how many wavelengths difference there are, and whether it's in phase or not. If it's in phase, you got light. That's exactly how they do the math and exactly how they draw it, and yet there is not a single way you can possibly draw a wave here and create 2 point sources in those locations. Even if I draw 2 waves inside of here, Huygens makes 2 waves, the point sources will be in the wrong location. You won't get the right answer. You'll get a completely, fundamentally not right answer, because it'll be half the distance, half different. Okay, if there was 20 bars created, you'd have 40 bars. Okay, they'd obviously be in the wrong locations. So this is their deception and their lies and their horseshit is just that. I mean, it's just so overtly wrong. There are no reason for anyone rational to believe that any Huygens thing or anything in the universe creates a wave. Flat waves go in this way, light goes in this way, and it comes out this way, half over the surface and half over the surface. It just magically breaks in the middle for no good reason. Why would anybody think a wave is formed in that location? Why would that be rational to anyone? It's irrational nonsense. They're just making it, they're forcing it to work, and it doesn't work. Yeah, I shouldn't have to say more than that. All right, we'll go back and see if it says anything else. I did start a video, so this is important, right? So he did say he starts a video, but got bored of it. So again, there's not one accurate video on YouTube. There's not one video he'll stand by. Okay? I mean, I've asked him, show me the video that does it right. I don't care if you make a video. Don't make a video. If you think it's already been done to death and it's already been done right, just point me to the video that does the analysis, shows the drawing, explains why this isn't rational, because this is what the math says. The math says the point source is here and the point source is here. Okay, it doesn't say the point sources are here and here. Okay, so you can't play that Huygens-y game. Okay, and what does Huygens do anyway? How does Huygens work? Why don't you draw a picture of Huygens doing something? I mean, obviously it does. You don't have to show us an infinite number of waves. Just show us how a wave that you say looks like that. okay, does an infinite number of these little humpy things because we have to make sure that this line goes straight again. But how does that make this? How does that make a point source radiating this way? How does Huygens make a flat wave into this kind of wave? You don't even explain that. You have nothing here as a rational description of how the reality works. Well, the electric field and the magnetic field, they look like that. And they're Huygensing, and when they Huygens, they go all crookedy. I mean, it just doesn't, it's just such crap. Alright, I did start a video but got bored of it. So again, this boredom thing. And again, didn't I overtly say in the video, I will pay you to overcome your boredom? I mean, doesn't the prospect of a new $400 guitar, I might go that high actually. Yeah, I might actually do that. Oh, as much as it hurts me to even contemplate such a preposterous waste of money. But yeah, give it your best shot because you're going to fail. And at least that's what I'll get out of it, is your failure. Okay, I'll get something for my money. However, I did get far enough into making it to compute the pattern for the double slit experiment. So again, he's just going to compute. Oh, isn't that special? You computed something. Okay, I already know what math works, and it has 4 sources in it, and the 4 sources are explicitly the surfaces. The math is entirely my theory. It's not your theory. It's a particle scatter theory. It's entirely surface dependent. Entirely. So this is his calculation? I calculated this. Now, obviously, it's got sort of obvious flaws, right? In the sense that this ghosty stuff is a little too ghosty. It's really ghosty. I mean, what are these two doing here? They really, it's 2 of them there, and 2 here, and then 2, and then 2. I don't think the bright and dark should look like that. I mean, technically, the brights are always much bigger than the dark spaces. So I don't think he did calculate anything. I don't think this has a single thing to do with anything. This is just another one of these fake, phony simulations. I did it on the computer. The computer came up with this result. This isn't a real image. It's not a real measurement. It's not a real anything. I mean, anybody who's actually looked at the pattern knows this can't be quite right, because guess what? This pattern can have 40 bars in it. And if they were getting this weak, I wouldn't be able to see any of them. So people can already know it can't be that bad. There can't be that little light, because I can see a whole bunch of little bars. There's no way it could be this little. So, this is just crap. He knows that Professor Lewin says it degrades by 97%. They just made up that number. It doesn't come from anywhere rational. But anyway, it doesn't, whatever. Let's not argue the amplitude of the electric field. So none of this was ever measured. None of this experiment was never done. So just like the single photon experiment, just a big rig. See, he never answers any of my points, right? So I've clearly asked AB Science, let's come on, give me a reasonable explanation. There's a Veritasium video called Single Photon. Go look it up. Okay? 5-minute video, not too much. Something like that. And he has the photo multiplier cranked all the way up. I mean, that is, in complete darkness, it's getting 7 error photons a second. 7. So it's cranked all the way up, right? I mean, you almost can't crank it up more than that, right? That's a lot of when you have it completely isolated from all photons that we can see, that's a lot of error photons. Now, why don't you explain why, when the thing has a dial right on it, you can dial it down so it doesn't get any extra photons. So when it's under the cloak of invisibility, it gets 0 photons per second. There's a dial. He can turn it right to that. Why didn't he turn it down? Oh, that's right, because the experiment doesn't work if he did. yeah, that's the answer. Durr. Oh. All right. That's the pattern that we predict and observe. So that's just you saying so. So I'm sorry. If that's all you have to do to be a scientist is just make declarations, You never have to prove it. There's not a single video proving any of that crap. There's not a fucking experiment anywhere where they took out the ruler and measured it. Says you is all that is. That just says you. Okay? You don't have any evidence supporting any of that crap. You're just making your declarations like Lego. We did it. You didn't do shit. Just like they never proved that photon plus photon equals no photon. It's not a proof. No, it's like they never made an electron detector. It's a preposterous statement. Do you actually think, you know, another question, just an obvious question. But you'll never answer any of my fucking questions. So what's the point, right? I mean, you try to pretend like you're engaging. And like, oh, I'm not being a rude douchebag. But yeah, you are. Because you never address a single point raised. You don't answer any of these questions that I get deleted off of message boards for bringing up. But the polarization of light is huge. Let's just say 1,500 atoms of polarization for the average visible photon. 1,500 atoms of polarization. That means some portion of the energy of the photon, you must concede, is spread over a rather large area. Now, it can be very thin, like an envelope, okay, but it's very wide in one direction. No doubt about it. There's a lot going on. An electron is, unlike 1,500 atoms, okay, an electron is 1,500,000 times smaller than an atom. Okay, so it's a very, very small little thing. It's not an atom. It's not 1,500. It's very, very small. And you actually think that this wavy thing hits one electron and sends back a whole wavy thing. Or that I could make a shadow. I could shoot a photon and the photon would be deflected in this direction, the entire photon. Okay, and I could make a little electron shadow over here, like it's all dark over here where the electron is shadowing the surface or something. Do you think any of that crap can happen? Do you think that makes any sense at all? That this compact matter with virtually, we could say, hundreds of thousands of electrons fit into 1,500 atoms. It's a lot of electrons could be there, right? And somehow I only affected Joe. Joe electron got completely affected, and Joe electron completely released a new photon, all by his little self. Your theory is broken. It doesn't make any sense. It's wrong. It's stupid. It's fucked up. All you can do is interact with a piece of a photon. The rest of the atoms have to do the work. Just like there's antenna polarization for electromagnetic radiation, there's real atomic polarization for light. And a collection of atoms has to collect light, and a collection of atoms has to produce light. That's the right answer. And you don't have it. Alright, so Dino will read his little... Maybe this is a goodbye statement by him, so that's okay. It's okay with me. Greetings, AB Science. The link you provided for the Fresnel formula is a perfect example of why I don't have an opinion on the double slit experiment. So you don't think I could feel a little bit irritated that you're saying, what, after all these videos I've made exposing their crap as being crap, you still don't have an opinion? You still don't see that, yeah, they've just been talking the talk. They haven't walked any walk here at all. Their whole wave theory is critically flawed. It doesn't make any sense, and I've demonstrated to you pretty clearly. And you should at least be saying, well, that particle model looks at least as good as your shit. You should be at least able to say that. But no, you should be able to say a lot more than that, because I've sort of pointed out that the particle model works for everything. But anyway, because despite what anyone says, that's extremely complicated topic and clearly requires a deep understanding of several different scientific disciplines at once. It really doesn't. The math is the math. All it's dealing with is vectors. So you know, you can keep saying it's complicated. No, it's pretty simple math. It's just saying, can I draw two lines from a location? Okay, that's all it is. All right, there's no other way to interpret it than the phase argument, right? And the phase just has to do with there's a distance from this point source to this point source. So you can sort of understand if I move this point just here, right next to this one, that the two lines that would go up and down would be the same length. But the further away I move this way, the more this line gets longer and longer and longer. I mean, you can't understand a simple concept like that, right? And that the truth is that when this line gets longer, there's places where it'll be one wavelength of distance longer, which means something has to travel exactly the right amount of time to show up in its, it has an A, B, C position. It shows, it is an A, but it shows up exactly at the other guy's B position, or exactly at his C position. So it shows up at exactly the right, so the notches on the rulers meet. So this is like, this is in metric, this is millimeters, and this is this is tenths of an inch, the markings. Well, there's places on the ruler where the two of them will line up and be the same, a notch and a notch. And that's all you're doing. You're saying, where do the notches line up? And those are specific distances. And there's a specific number of times it can do it, moving in this direction. There's a certain number of times you can have that wavelength difference. Now, this hypotenuse is not exactly the same length as this plus this, which makes this a little bit complicated about where the notches are going to be on the thing. But the idea of you understanding that this is really just projected onto this circle, that the flat screen is nonsense. I mean, do I have to say that to AB Science? your math, it even says on the Fresnel, I should go find that, where it talks about the pattern being infinite. Okay, the pattern goes in this direction infinitely. We know the pattern doesn't do that. That the only piece of the pattern that's infinite is this very last little piece. All the infinity is in the last piece, and it's destructive. And so it means there's no light forever. All the infinities are in this tiny portion. There are no infinities all through here. Okay, they're all quite solid blocks. Nothing infinite to confuse you at all. All the infinities are here. And there aren't any really, because this is 90 degrees. And you can, again, this line thing, you can understand these lines, and you can understand that there's just a line from here to here, and there's a line from here to here. Okay? And that's all you're really comparing. You're just comparing this circle to this circle. All you can do is sit back and watch and listen to higher level thinkers duke it out over their conclusions. Well, again, this isn't about that. This is about the most axiomatic, the most basic part of describing functions, and it's about honesty, frankly. Their grotesque dishonesty is obvious. They won't concede the evidence is weak. They won't concede they didn't repeat the experiments. They won't concede that it's wrong to draw two waves and say this is about wave interference. That is just plainly wrong, because that's not what it's taking place. So this is about frickin' arguing integrity. Which is why I was so disappointed that the live debate never happened. Yeah, and I likewise am disappointed. But again, in a sense, you could almost predict what would have happened in the debate. Baldy Katz would have just spent the whole debate saying, "I'm only a school teacher. Why are you picking on me?" Yeah, I don't know anything, but I know how to defeat a flat earther. So it's okay if I pick on them. That's all you'll do. Those of us out here in the cheap seats could have learned an awful lot from the back and forth on the evidence and interpretations. Well, what you could have learned is that they don't have any answers for my claims. If I ask them, how can you not admit the evidence is thin and weak? That you don't have anything near enough evidence for conviction? That you haven't proven anything? That there's no nails in any coffin anywhere? Not a legitimate nail has been put in any coffin. That is the kind of thing where I could drag that out of them. There's no way they could avoid having to admit that, yes, this isn't the greatest evidence. We don't have much evidence for dark matter. We don't have much evidence for multiverses. And we don't have any evidence for this and this and this. They'd have to just admit it. And that the wave evidence is, in fact, incredibly suspect. Because it's all based on this two-slit analysis. And I've demonstrated over and over again. They'll claim they did experiments they never did. They'll claim results that never took place, like the magical photon was there, and then I opened the other slit over here. I shined a flashlight, and there was a flashlight beam, and I shined another flashlight, and the beam disappeared. They'll claim experiments they have no factual data demonstrating has ever happened. You know, I hope someday you'll reconsider the proposition. Anyway, the idea, I mean, what's to reconsider? I've given him almost a blank check. I've said, what do you want me to do to bribe you into it? What exactly do I have to provide you? How many hookers? You know, what's the payment? And, you know, he won't do it because he can't answer the questions. Anyway, the idea that does actually seem to fit in my tiny brain is mechanical gravity. I'm nowhere near qualified to draw any conclusions. So you shouldn't call it mechanical gravity, because it's called, you could just say mock gravity. You could have said something like, well, you know, mock gravity is such a good model of gravity. Why are you throwing it out merely because you have a little bit of a momentum problem? That is, you have a drag problem. You know there's no way of getting around that drag problem. It's impossible. Did you think about it at all? You know, did you ever try to think of a solution? Anyway, I'm nowhere near qualified to draw any conclusions, but I really enjoy exploring the idea simply because it's relatively easy to understand. And it's the same as bent space, is the irony here. When Leonard Susskind teaches relativity, he teaches it as if, okay, it was a fluid, and it went down a drain in the middle of the object, and the universe keeps producing new fluid. That's how he teaches the subject, for fuck's sake. Because it works. It creates the inverse square law. It explains why there is an inverse square law. It basically just tells you what I tell you all the time. It's just think of a light bulb and then reverse it. What if the light bulb sucked photons? Yeah, that's gravity. Okay, so is there any chance you'd consider doing a video about it just to cover the history of the idea and the pros and cons of the theory? Well, I don't know. Does that really you have to go over that in any kind of depth? I mean, there's one part of it that's easy to understand, is the fact that really the only issue is the drag one. All the other ones can be explained. The fact that you don't make the Earth's gravity. When you show up, the gravity already exists. The Earth is already gravitational because it has to do with what's happening to the Earth. You're not really doing anything, okay? But as you get closer and closer to the Earth, you're essentially part of the Earth's mass, okay? You really don't have to touch the Earth to be part of the Earth's mass, just like the atmosphere isn't really touching the surface of the Earth, but it's still part of the Earth's mass. And but your interaction, obviously, your ability to change the gravity is so tiny that you can't see those effects. But gravity doesn't happen between things. You know, it doesn't. The gravity something's producing isn't interacting with the thing that it's pulling on, the moon, for example. The Earth's gravity was already 10 meters per second per second. The moon is just obeying the amount of gravity the Earth's creating, right? It's not 10 meters per second for the moon, obviously. Anyway, I'll have to. A lot of the arguments against particle gravity are really bad arguments. Now, the drag one's a good argument, but the fact is we already know drag exists because electrons and protons are affected by it. Anyway, are you aware of any mathematical models? So, you know, bent space is a mathematical model that basically duplicates mock gravity, which is particle gravity, which is mechanical gravity. Even if you don't agree with them, that purport to quantify the effects of mechanical gravity. I'm not looking to prove anyone wrong or to start a fight. I'm simply one who's weirdos. I'm simply one of those weirdos who thinks it's fun to ponder any new scientific idea that I can actually understand. Yeah, and I think it's fun to not be arguing horse shit all the time. So we should be able to get to some basic axioms and get to a more evolved conversation than always talking baby talk to each other. Well, let's not stick forks in our eyes. Yeah, well, we should have already been over that one. I shouldn't have to argue why it's stupid to stick a fork in your eye. I'd really like it for it to be true, but I'm not really ready to simply hand wave away all the work of the biggest names in the history of math and physics. You know, as the illustration is that it's really haphazard what work gets respected, and that it really has to do with how much woo people want in the universe. I don't think you should even have heard of Dirac. Dirac's theory was so silly. He shouldn't even be relevant at all. Antiparticles, the whole suspension of time limitations, I mean, moving forward and backward in time, I mean, it's just crap. But anyway, based solely on what I've learned from a single YouTube channel. Now, I'm not an expert on YouTube, but I have the feeling that it might be more appropriate to ask this question to you on your own channel. Yes, I guess. I mean, clearly most of this is a private conversation. Not too many people read comments anyway. So I'll repost it there on your latest video. Isn't that? He's probably very excited. As a good faith gesture, I even become a Patreon member, so that he's going to love. All right. So he claims, well, there's no point, right? So yes, you're going to pay him for evading the argument, for insulting me plainly. I mean, every one of his comments is an insult. Every one of them claims I don't understand, I haven't done enough work, I haven't researched, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. Just absolute fucking shit, okay, as a comment. And that's okay with you. So you're going to reward him for that. So see, I have good reason not to like you. Because clearly you're dissing me in a lot of places. And fuck you for it. Okay. That is the highest level. Thanks for at least engaging as much as you have. So there you go. You're thanking somebody for evading all the questions I've asked, for sending me to claiming that the page he's going to send to me has the right answer when it isn't even the right diffraction math. The wrong F name. Okay, he sent me to the wrong F name page. Yeah, and you're rewarding him. Okay, I've learned a lot of totally legitimate physics from Gary, but he's obviously had to deal with so many enemies constantly coming at him. Well, again, the friends are just as useless. You want to show me the friend comments that have made any contribution, that have helped me understand, have made any kind of anything valuable at all? Yes, they're just in my way too. They say things. Well, what do you or is it really red, or is it like burgundy red? They'll do something so fucking stupid you just want to squish their fucking heads. So I'm just saying, you're there's no food value in these comment sections. It's just liars and idiots. Okay. With their knives out, that he clearly doesn't trust or welcome my amateur questions. I don't mind questions, but your questions are pointed, frankly. Okay? And I can show you the points. I think I have shown you the points in the questions. Your presumption that they must be right and I must be wrong seems to really exist, and that I have to do more than they have to do. Somehow my evidence has to be double evidence. It seems clear that's what you're saying. Okay, in the spirit they're intended. I'm just saying, if you came into the argument unbiased and listened to him make his theory about Huygens and dark matter and photons that bounce off of tiny electrons and all this other horseshit they've told you, and then I gave you my theory, and you honestly evaluated those two theories without any previous prejudice, without knowing that they have university hats and they have this and they have that, if you fairly just judge the evidence of the argument, just take the personalities completely out of it, right? Just read the two papers written by the two arguments being made. You're not going to admit that I'm way the fuck ahead on points. Okay. Yeah, okay, I haven't knocked the fuckers out, but I'm way ahead on points. But if you somehow can, then I'd be eternally grateful. So isn't that special? Thanks again. So he thanks him again for insulting Gary, okay, and evading all of Gary's questions. Okay, and apologies in advance for all the times you might end up face palming yourself over one of my painfully silly questions. I just hope you can ask your questions just as pointedly to him as you ask them of me. Yeah, implying that you haven't made the argument. Okay, this was, kind of a weird statement. Quite uncomfortable to read your self-hating text. Well, yes, he is being, well, whatever that whole passive-aggressive thing is. People love to play like, oh, I'm just being I'm a little fairy princess, I'm harmless. And then they steal all the shit in your house, you know who brags about how someone... You know who brags about how awesome and smart they are? Fucking idiots, that's who. So no one's asking you to brag about anything, right? They're just saying that, oh, wait a minute, you're going to sit there and say you're an imbecile. Oh, okay. You don't know anything. You're going to pretend that, oh, it's all honest mistakes because I'm just too fucking stupid. When, again, you're basically saying to him, just like you didn't say to me, oh, I might irritate the fuck out of you. See, I'm not allowed to be irritated. But you've pre-warned him. Oh, I might irritate you. But it's okay, I'm a Patreon. So you'll let me do it because I'm paying you. See, it's a good thing I don't require a club to exist. And you don't have to be a Patreon. And you don't have to do any of that stuff to be treated just like a piece of shit. Yeah, I'll treat you all equally. Whether you pay me or not, I'm going to treat you like shit. If you're saying shitty things, I mean, it's just the way it works. You just can't get away with that. So I'll have to go to his channel just to see the Dino comments and to see all the wonderful answers he gets from his wonderful new, Patreon buddy. So, whatever. So yeah, there's nothing else to say. So the link is bullshit. Overtly the wrong math. The right math page is bullshit. Again, it doesn't say anything I haven't already told you, and that you need 4-point sources to create the double slit pattern. You can't create it without 4-point sources, and the point sources are the surfaces. That's the math that works, and it doesn't draw well as a wave. That's the simple argument. If you want to claim those are waves in those locations, then you're making a pretty silly argument. And it clearly indicates that the surfaces are what's causing the phenomenon, as seems so fucking obvious, right? I mean, I put a quarter in front of me, right? What do you think is causing the fuzzy shadow, right? I put this little SD card in front of me. The fuzzy shadow that's not only going in, but it's going out. The little fuzzy edges that are... What do you think's causing it? Oh, yeah, the surfaces. Maybe that's it, right? Come on. It's obvious. It's obviously the surfaces that cause the phenomenon. Obviously. All right. So, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. I don't think there's any... I know there's so many arguments I could re-emphasize. Let's see, is there any real telling ones? So it's the wrong page for the thing, and then he says he did something, and it's just a simulation. I punched the numbers into a simulator. Look, just absolute horseshit. Okay, so till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. This is communicating with humans. I mean, they just don't have any integrity. Again, what am I asking so much? I'm asking them to admit that their theory is extraordinarily wacky, and that they don't have extraordinary evidence, and that they don't even really have ordinary evidence, and that their evidence, well, it kind of doesn't exist. It sucks, and they won't admit it. Look how they squirm. They have not proven any of this stuff 1/millionth as well as evolution has been proven.